Up next on Beyond the Clef, we have Kennan Wylie, who is the Director of Percussion Studies at Marcus High School, and we talked about everything that he does, setting up percussionists for a good start from the beginning all the way through, talked about his philosophies on percussion, and talked about his new drum set book that he's doing with Gregg Bissonnette. Up next on Beyond the Clef.
Beyond the Clef is presented by Director's Choice.
All right, so Kennan Wylie, thank you so much for being on the program. You are really a legend in the percussion world. I've been talking to a lot of my friends, and they said that I said, hey, I'm having you on, and what, really? Oh my gosh.
No, don't believe that. Not a legend, just do what everybody else does. Just teach kids.
Yeah,
Teaching
cool.
kids.
Well, it's great to have you on, and you are the Director of Percussion Studies for Marcus?
Marcus High School.
All right, and how long have you been there?
I've been there since 1990.
Oh, okay, yeah, great. So you've had a lot of time to
figure it out.
Yeah, get going.
I don't know if I have it figured out, but I've been there for a while. Yeah, made a lot of mistakes and hopefully some good things.
So what is your role there?
I am in charge of all percussion activities from the 6th grade all the way through the 12th grade, and that's all 9 months of the year and any summer stuff. So I teach all the beginners all the way up to the seniors.
Okay, and what does your schedule look like with that? On a weekly basis?
I have 3 middle schools and I have a high school. I go to the 3 feeder schools pretty much all the way in the morning till about 1:30 in the afternoon. I'm totally on the middle school campuses, kind of bouncing back and forth. Some of them I'll go to and then return back later in the morning. I do teach 3 beginner classes, and then I'll do some additional work with the kids in the top band or the second band, depending on how the schedule lines up. But that takes me till about 1:30, and then I have a class that starts at Marcus, usually at 2. And that's the last period of we're on a block schedule at Marcus, so I end up there, and that takes me, to the rest of the day. That's right. The high school,
Okay.
which can sometimes be late in the day or evening.
Right, and so what is your role in the middle school, for instance? Are you the lead teacher on that class for the whole time, or do you have somebody else that covers when you're not there?
I am the lead teacher for the percussion classes. I mean, I can make all of them. We do have a little bit of a coverage problem in one of the schools where I have a percussion assistant that will come in for 30 minutes or 45 minutes to kind of cover, so I can make that. It's kind of a scheduling thing. It's not I can't be there because of a scheduling thing.
Right.
So other than that, I'm my role is to take care of all those beginners, to make sure they're getting trained, and then to spend as much time as I can with the 7th and 8th graders. And I do, like I said, I'm very lucky to have a percussion assistant it is a district position that allows some extra help to cover things that I can't get to within the 7th, 8th grade element and the beginner element too, if that needs be.
So when you worked with my good friend Alan Hanna, he said that the percussionists that you taught were just so well-rounded. They could read so well, they could read their mallets so well, they can do all that. Can you tell me about what's your philosophy on getting that to happen?
Well, I think, any percussionist, that's what you want. You want them to be well-rounded. That's kind of our goal, is to make them appreciate and want to aspire to play all the instruments. I think the reading thing comes from exposure to a lot of music. The more music they read, the better they get. I mean, it's just like anything else. So I do a lot of music with them. Every 6th grader, when they start as beginners, at the end of the year, they all do a solo and they all do an ensemble. In 7th grade, all those kids do a solo, and they do 3 ensembles. They do one for Christmas, they do one for a solo and ensemble, and they do one at the end of the year. And then the 8th graders do the same thing. So by the time they leave the middle school, these kids have done 3 solos, and maybe an extra one if they're that gung-ho about it, maybe an extra one, but at least 3, and they played in 7 ensembles. So that's already a good start before they even get to the high school. So when I get them up to the high school, they've already had some exposure to a lot of stuff. And when you're doing that much additional playing with them outside of the band, that's going to help their reading, and that's going to help their percussion skills. That's not going to. I think that's where percussionists actually maintain some of their, or maintain but also develop their percussion skills is through percussion ensemble, because there's different instruments involved. There's listening, there's ensemble balance, ensemble blend. So I think that's really where the kids learn to be better percussionists is through the ensemble experience, and that can take place in the band as well, but even more so in the percussion ensemble because of its nature of being so conducive to their instruments, and all the music is pretty much written for them, and there's usually one player on each part, and so they're all responsible for their own part, how it works together. And the band stuff is the same way, but
I feel like band literature is sometimes can get so boring for those percussionists. If you just have concert percussion, is not. I mean, I hate to say boring, but it's just not as full as maybe an ensemble.
Yeah, it's not as fulfilling sometimes for the percussionists, because their parts are maybe not as, like you say, as full of enough beef in there that's gonna develop them. You know what I'm saying? It's just quarter notes and eighth notes. That's probably, they need more than that. They need a little bit more information to help them, I think, sometimes. And through the percussion ensemble experience, they get that, and through solos, they get that. A lot of solo literature, not to mention their all-region, experience. If they have that, that helps as well. So when you combine all of these elements, I think that's what helps it be well-rounded. You can't avoid it, because you're bouncing around all the different instruments. And if you didn't do any of those, then the only experience you would have would be your band experience, which isn't bad, but it's going to be limited because, like we just mentioned, the repertoire doesn't really allow for a lot of percussive growth sometimes, So.
Right, and if let's just say like a 7th grader, they're in a class with a bunch of 8th graders too, and you're trying to get the good parts for the right, to fulfill the needs of, you got to get a good snare drummer on the march, for instance, and do this.
Exactly.
But then that kid kind of gets over and ends up just playing the timpani or just playing maybe a mallet part, and then we finally throw them on the snare drum, and they've got no experience with it.
Exactly.
So an ensemble is a great way to put.
Exactly. I can't say enough about the ensemble experience. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of people listening to this saying, well, I don't have a percussion specialist.
Right.
Well, what do I do? Well, to that I would say, maybe you're going to have to.
Someone's playing in your honor.
I'm not sure that's the experience I'm talking about, but I think that you're going to have to manufacture something. You're going to have those kids come after school or before school and spend an hour with them, and maybe do something that's special for them. Maybe something like a percussion ensemble, or work on their band music, or something to entertain those kids. And you're going to have to do it. The band director's going to have to do it if you don't have a specialist or somebody to work with them. And that's how you get closer to your percussionists. That's how they have more respect for you, and vice versa. You got to spend time with them, just like you spend time with everybody else in the band. And I think that's the best way to do it. And if you need help, selecting an ensemble, I mean, there's plenty of people you can lean to. You can call a publishing company. Heck, you can call me. You can talk to anybody that's a percussion teacher and say, hey, what can I do with my percussionist? Because you just got to have the information. Once you get the information, you can implement it. That's not that hard to do.
Yeah, my next question was going to be, where do you find all this rep? Because you're talking about 8 to 10 ensembles in the 3-year process here, and you got to switch it up. How do you find all that rep?
The big ones that I know of off the top of my head are Roll Off, and Tap Space, and C. Allen. Those 3 really have a lot of literature for beginners and for intermediate percussionists that I know of, and I'm sure there's some other places that I'm not naming off the top of my head.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But those 3 come to mind really fast. I mean, my company does stuff as well, but I mean, I don't have near the amount of material that they have. I mean, mine is good, but it's just not. Those guys have like mounds of stuff.
I really like. I have a couple things from Roll Off, and I like that it's an ensemble book of quite a few ensembles in one set.
Yeah.
So because it's also one of those times that you got to pick the right ensemble for the right kids, and who can do what.
Yes. Yeah. It's and there's a lot out there. You just sometimes if you just Google young percussion ensembles, it'll all come up on the internet, and you'll be amazed what you'll find. It's all over the place. I mean, speaking of a person that that has done a lot of percussion teaching. I mean, I still get on Google and I Google percussion ensembles, and I do it all the time. So for somebody else to do it, it's not out of the question at all. I mean, I wouldn't feel bad about doing that because I do it myself,
right.
And I am a percussion teacher. So I mean, if I wasn't, I would probably do it too. And if I needed a good clarinet ensemble, I would probably Google clarinet ensembles, for 3 or 4 players and see what's online, So I would definitely start there. The internet's a powerful source, and then reach out to people that I might know.
I had Gabe Musella on the program, and he was talking about how the band literature is really a new experience. It's only been about 100 years really since bands existed, and he was commenting on the percussion literature and how much it's exploded because he was referencing the PML.
Yeah.
And so there's so many, because percussion ensembles is becoming such a big deal.
It is. It is definitely booming. There's a lot of people writing good music out there. A lot.
Right. So what is your, let's call it a 7-year arc for percussionists? You have a 6th grader all into a senior. How do you structure your, for lack of a better phrase, curriculum or maybe your philosophy?
Well, I kind of gave you the middle school already. I mean, that's kind of the format that I run with my middle school kids. We're kind of narrowing this down to really, a brief way of saying it here on the podcast. But that's with my middle school kids. At the beginner level, we do an ensemble, a solo, and then 7th grade, 1 solo, 3 ensembles, and the same thing in the 8th grade, while also doing all region music. Now, when they come to the high school, the curriculum almost is dictated by what they're doing with the experience of their band experience. What I mean by that is in the fall, it's pretty much all region, all fall, because that's what dictates what we're doing. I wouldn't really work on, mallet solos in September when we're getting ready for all region. So we work on that process all the way up to, early December. Every Monday for the last 20 years, I mean, all we do is all region, all Monday. I mean, we don't do any drumline during class on Monday. There's no drumline going on at all. And a lot of people frown upon that, but I think it's real important that we still have a big, that those kids respect that music. And if it means that much for me to spend 1 day of my week on that music, they realize it's important to me. And so we spend, as we get closer, we may even up that to 2 days a week. And it's a really big deal, because I think that's where the kids are learning how to keep those skills up while they're doing marching band. It's real important that we don't let that go during the fall season, because that's going to determine how well they're going to play in the spring. And we'll get to the spring in just a moment, but that takes us all the way up to December. And then right when they get done with their experience with all region, we select solos for them. And where I teach out, we require all the students to play 4 mallet solo. And I know that sounds a little weird, but the reason that we do that is because some of the best solo literature is written for 4 mallets. There are some good timpani solos, and there are some good multi-percussion solos out there, but we have found, when I say we, the staff and I, the guys that work with me, that we really want these kids to excel at 4 mallets, because that's really where a lot of our art form is. And we don't really do 2 mallet solos, because all of these kids are expected to be able to play 4 mallets for all regions, so we want to develop that skill. Occasionally we will let somebody play 2 mallets, but mostly they're all 4 mallet solos. And those are selected in December, and those kids practice that and perform that on a recital in February. It's a solo recital. We're actually doing it next week. Yeah. And those kids come in one at a time after each other, and they play in front of their peers and their parents. And it is probably the best thing I've ever done at the high school. We started this about 15 years ago, and the accountability is off the charts, because these kids, like I said, they have to play in front of their peers, have to play in front of their parents, and they don't want to let either one of those people down. And they could care less about playing in front of a judge. They care more about playing in front of their peers, and that's really big to them. So we do that. I specifically designed to do that recital 2 weeks before solo and ensemble, so they are ready for solo and ensemble.
Right.
That's almost like an afterthought, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And they go play their solos like, well, whatever. I did my thing 2 weeks ago. That was really big for them. So getting them prepared for solo and ensemble is rather easy having to do it that way. And we do the same thing with our ensembles. Now I select the ensembles that they're going to play in December, and we pass them out, kind of get them rolling while we're working on the Christmas concert in conjunction with that. We rehearse after school a lot because those kids are in separate bands in January. So we rehearse about 3 days after school for about 2 hours. It's a pretty intense, pretty rigorous schedule. Not all those kids are involved in every rehearsal, but I'm involved in every rehearsal. So I guess for me it's rigorous. But we usually do about anywhere from 9 to 12 ensembles. And this goes with all the high school kids. And that concert takes place the week before spring break. We do a recital right after the solo recital to get ready for that, and we usually bring in a guest artist. We bring in a national artist every year. We've been doing it since '92, and this year we're bringing in Russ Miller, who's a Los Angeles-based drummer, amazing drummer. We brought in everybody from Steve Smith to Dave Weckl to Andy Narell to Gregg Bissonnette to Shi Wu to Michael Burr. I mean, we brought so many people in. I can't remember everybody we brought in. But they come in, they spend a day with the kids, they practice, and the kids play about 4 tunes with them. It's really, really, really cool. And that's in addition to all the other ensembles they're playing. So going back to the reading thing, one of the things that they read really well is that when I bring in these artists, I give the kids tunes, and they're expected to be able to play these tunes in 2 to 3 weeks. And they're pop tunes. They're not like tunes that you're just going to whip out of your back pocket, but they're tunes that they have to be able to sight read. I mean, not sight read, but they got to be able to get through them in about a week or so. And we're as we speak right now, that's what we're working on. And when I go home from Team EA, we'll spend the next 2 weeks putting those extra tunes together for the guest artist, who will be here March 4th. And we'll rehearse with him and then do the concert that night. And so that takes us all the way to spring break. And then after spring break, I pretty much spend a lot of my time with them in their ensemble, in their band settings. I'll try to visit their bands and listen to them play in the ensembles. If they need to be pulled out, we'll pull them out. But a lot of our section rehearsal training with the high school kids takes place in the band. Those kids are trained well enough; they don't need to be pulled out to work on the music. They just need to be. They need to make sure they're using the right implements, setting stuff up the right way, cymbal choices, beater choices. That's kind of what we spend most of it. And we can do that by attending the rehearsal, not by pulling them out. And so we'll do that in the month of March and April. And then then after spring break, we start meeting on Monday nights and we start drumming for Drumline. And I know that sounds really weird. Why are you doing that? Well, just like I said earlier, I don't want them to leave the marching percussion away. I mean, we need to keep that going even in the spring. So after spring break, they start drumming on every Monday night for about 2 hours. That takes us all the way up to the end of school. So when we get ready to start Drumline, we've kind of we're ready. You know, we're not like coming out, you know, and not knowing what's going on. So there's this constant ebb and flow of percussion throughout the whole year. And this goes on, it's the same sequence every year. And it may change for the kids. The kids may elevate into different roles, but that sequence goes on every single year. And it's worked out really well for the last 25 years. And we've never, I've had to stick with that. There's opportunities to do indoor drumline, which I find to be very fascinating. But in order to do that, we may have to give up an element of what we're already doing. And I really value the experience that they get in the fall with the marching stuff, and I value what they get in the spring with the ensemble stuff. And I really don't want to see that go away. And I don't know if there's a way to do it all, but we're trying our best. But it is hard to do everything and not sacrifice something. So I've decided that, for me, I think, when somebody teaches, it's a reflection of who you are and where you grew up and what you are as a musician, if you know what I'm saying. Like when I see a group, I think of the teacher. When I see that group, I think about their background and where they are, and that's a lot of times that's the way their kids play, is how the teacher is. You know what I'm saying? If they come from a drum corps background, they're probably going to have a lot of drum corps kids there. If they come from a orchestral, they're probably going to have that going for them. And I like to be kind of all of the above. You can't really tell where I'm coming from. That's the whole beauty of it, and because my background is varied. I mean, I've done a lot of different styles of music, and so I think that's why my kids do that. Is because we have everything from a Brazilian ensemble to a steel band, and we have a lot of different things that we do at the high school, and that's reflective of my upbringing and how I grew up, and the people that taught me, and the experiences I had when I was in college or high school. All those are reflective. When you see Marcus High School, you see what I did when I was their age. That's what I was doing.
What have you seen over the last 28 years you've been at Marcus? How has it grown since you started there?
The program, or just percussion in general at the high school level?
Let's say you're just percussion.
I think it's amazing. I think that the kids now, well, I should say, you'd asked me before we started, when I got hired at Marcus, I was kind of like, back in the late 80s and the early 90s, there really wasn't a lot of positions that had a full-time percussion teacher. They didn't exist anywhere. The only ones that I knew existed, there was one at, I think it was Westville, and then I think Spring got one, and that was the only two that I knew of. And then Brian Youngblood, who's a friend of mine, who teaches at TCU, he used to be a band director at LD Bell, but he wasn't a percussion guy. He was their percussion guy, but he was a band director. But and I knew of those three people that did a lot of percussion at the high school, but other than that, there was nobody that was full-time. And so when I got going into this industry, I thought it was going to be just kind of part-time. Well, to kind of make a short story from a long story, about 5 or 6 years later, Louisville was one of the first districts to kind of implement a percussion specialist at all the high schools. And it started off as a half-time position and then quickly elevated to a full-time position. Well, once that kind of hit the scene, then a couple years later, you started seeing other people. And now in the state of Texas, there are a lot of percussion specialists. I mean, that was something that back in 1990, that didn't exist at all. I could count maybe 2 or 3. And now in 2018, I bet there's close to 100, if not more, in the state of Texas. And that's percussion specialists, but I'm sure that there are many more jobs that are percussion based, but they call them, maybe an assistant band director or something like that, with not a percussion specialist per se, but all they do is percussion. So it has changed a lot. And since that has happened, that's why you see all of these amazing high school players. I mean, the education is it's out the roof. The internet provides all these sources for kids to go learn, and you have all these great teachers teaching kids how to play percussion. It's just kids are playing stuff I couldn't imagine playing when I was in high school. Some of the solos are playing. It's mind-boggling. And I'll look at some of my colleagues and we're like, can you believe what this kid is playing? I mean, this is unbelievable. And then they're going to marching drum corps and these corps that are just amazing. And they're coming from our schools. A lot of these kids are coming from our Texas high schools. It's just amazing. And that's a testament to great teaching in our state. And I guess there's a lot more resources available through the internet and through publishers and manufacturers. It's just really made it our art form has just evolved into something I could never imagine to be where it is now.
Well, what do you see? Where do you see percussion in general going in the next 10, 20 years? I
don't know. I'm excited to find out. I really don't know what it's going to get to. I think the level's just going to keep increasing. I think I see middle school kids now doing things I never thought they could do. I don't know what to expect, but I don't think it's going to decrease. I think there's still a ceiling. I don't think we've reached the ceiling yet of what these kids can do. I think what I would like to see I would like to see more opportunities for these percussionists to be able to showcase their talent somewhere. I don't know what that means. You can go to Midwest and you can play, you can go to PASIC and you can play, but maybe coming to TBA and hearing a percussion ensemble or somewhere where these people can play so you can hear this. Because there's, doing a spring concert, that's great, but only your people in your city get to see that. But some of these kids need to be playing for people a wider audience.
I've heard it rumored that people were exploring the idea of a all-state percussion ensemble.
I've heard that too.
Is this kind of the thing you're talking about?
I think things like that. Yes. I mean, I don't know if that's going to be the form it takes, but I just think that there are so many good things out there. I wish more people could see them. I know that when we play at Midwest or PASIC, it's like, wow, that's really cool. I mean, like, we do it every year, but nobody sees it because it's in our own little backyard. You can put out information and people can come to your concert, but everybody has their own concerts.
Sure.
It's impossible for us to go to everybody's concert and watch them. And you can stream them, you can put them online, and that helps. But, there's nothing for the performer. They want to play in front of a live audience. And, just giving them some venues to play at, some avenues to have an audience to clap, and I think that's what I would love to see, so we could really appreciate what these kids are doing. I mean, I think it's amazing what I've heard, and some of the kids that I've seen play is just amazing.
Well, let's go back to the beginning of the percussionist's life. Something I struggle with is how to place students on percussion. What is your philosophy there? How do you do that? How do you manage that? When does that start? How does that selection work, and how do you choose?
Mine's not much different than most people's. I don't do anything. I don't have any secret recipe. Yeah. But I'll articulate what I do. It's very similar to, I'm sure, a lot of the listeners out there. Is we have a band drive, a beginner drive, and I'll sit there with the other guys, and if you're interested in percussion, you come see me. I may have a 5-10 minute window with the kid, and in that 5 or 10 minute window, you got to make a lot of decisions. I mean, sometimes you can make a decision in 60 seconds or less. You do have that every now and then, but most of the time, it's not that obvious. And so I do 4 things with them that I feel I can do really quick. I do ask them a few questions, that while I'm kind of putting their name in the laptop, I ask them a few questions, find out a little bit about who they are, and then I do 4 things. I play repeat the beat on my knee with them. I give them a score out of 10, and then I have them tap their foot, and I have them tap their hand with their foot, see what their coordination is like. Maybe have them tap their foot and do some upbeats, see what their coordination is like. Give them a score out of 10. And then I have them stand up, give them some sticks, put them in their hands, see what they do when they just kind of play 8 on a hand. Have them play 8 strokes on the right, 8 strokes on the left. Just see what they naturally do when they pick up the stick. Give them a score out of 10 for that. And then I write out a few stickings, combinations, and I have them play that, kind of see how they pick up the combinations. And I give them a score out of 10 on that. And so out of 40 points is a perfect score. And if they score 30 or higher, then I feel like, I think they could probably do percussion, If they score 30 below, then I usually try to stay away from, selecting them if I have other options, And it's about as simple as that. I try to keep it really simple.
I always find it so difficult because if I let it up to the children to decide, I'm going to have a band of drummers and saxophone players.
Yeah. Now, we know the other thing I'll say there's one other thing I would say about it, is that, band directors are guilty of this, as well as percussion instructors. They require these kids, incoming percussionists, to have certain amount of years of keyboard experience. And I tap the brakes on that because everybody's experience is different.
Right.
I've had kids come in and say, I played piano for 3 years. I'm like, that's awesome. Can you point to middle C? No, they have no idea where middle C is. So I'm like, okay, well that doesn't really count then.
Right.
So be careful when you're asking for keyboard experience. I've had kids that have had 6 months and they know more than somebody that's had 3 years of experience. So that's not really a deal breaker for me either way. I don't. That's too dicey of maybe a criteria for me to base their selection on the class. So I think it's important. It's fun if they do have it, and it's a quality experience, but it's not a deal breaker.
You mentioned your company earlier, K. Wylie Productions. What do you do there?
Well, I started that in 2001. I wrote a beginner book for snare drum. I didn't know it was going to turn into a full-blown. I just wrote one book thinking that's kind of what I wanted to do, and then one book turned into a company book, which had a combination effect, which turned into another book, which turned into another book. And so like now I've got like, about 8 or 9 books, and I've got a bunch of ensembles and videos. And so it's not, it's a small company, but it's working its way, It's just going to take some time for me to get to where I want to develop it. But it's a start of a little publishing company. It's all geared towards the young percussionist. Mostly beginner. There are some things that you could do if you were a second or third year percussionist. And I think in the future you'll see more items kind of going up and up and up and up. And so eventually it won't be geared just for the young percussionist. It'll be geared for the total percussionist. But when I stop teaching, day to day, and I have more time to put into that, then you'll kind of see a change in that. But right now, it's hard to kind of keep up with that, with a teaching job going on every day. But it's something that I really have a passion for. I really like, I think there's a kind of a hole in our industry for beginner percussion literature, and so I kind of saw a gap there, and I wanted to kind of help with that. A good friend of mine, we went to high school together, Mark Wessels. His book is a real popular book, and a lot of people know we went to high school together. And so it's kind of ironic now that I wrote a book, and so we both have beginner books out. When we both went to the same high school and we both had the same instructor, it's kind of weird, but it's kind of cool. A lot of people don't know that, so I thought I'd throw
that is really interesting. Yeah, that's we used that book.
Yeah.
So that's
well,
really
it's not
fun.
too late to change.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
Just shameless plug. Shameless plug.
You have a new book that you did with Gregg Bissonnette.
Yeah.
First of all, who is Gregg Bissonnette for our audience?
Yes, Gregg Bissonnette is one of my all-time famous drummers. All my all-time favorite drummers of mine, but also many other people. He went to school at North Texas as well. He is played in the famous 1 O'Clock, played with Maynard Ferguson. Just a real versatile drummer. Played with David Lee Roth, and right now he's playing with Ringo Starr. He's Ringo Starr's drummer, and just traveling the world, having a blast. And he's one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet, and one of the most talented guys you'll ever meet. One of the like I said, I think Gregg is probably well known mostly not because of his character, but also his drumming. He is just so versatile, just so versatile in so many styles. And when Hal Leonard came to me, they wanted me to write a drum set book, and I was like, wow. I said, that would be really cool. Thanks for asking. And so I said, I'll do it, but I really have to have somebody with me. I can't just do it by myself. We need somebody that's really gonna, people can latch on to. And they said, well, do you know who you want? I said, yeah, I want Gregg, And so I called Gregg. I said, Gregg, if I write this book, will you do the video? He goes, if you're writing it, Kennan, I'll do it. So, that was kind of even more motivation for me to write the book, because I wanted to hang out with Gregg. I wanted to just kind of spend some time with him, getting to know him, and I have, and it's been a blast. And so the book is kind of an A to Z drum set method. Believe it or not, there's not a lot of drum set methods out there. There's a lot of books about beats, a lot of books about how to play different styles, but there's not really a book that tells you about how to set the drums up, how to hold a stick, how to get basic strokes, some exercises to develop your hands, to develop single strokes, how to play flams, how to play accents, and then how to learn basic rhythms like quarter notes and eighth notes, and then get into basic beats and how to play rock beats, jazz beats, shuffle beats, and then it gets into obviously how to read music and then reading charts. If you want to play in a jazz band, what you need to be able to do to set up a band, how to play long notes, short notes, different styles, Latin styles, funk styles, you name it. It goes, like I say, it goes A to Z. And the guys at Hal Leonard were awesome and letting me kind of do my thing, and they did a good job with helping me get that out on paper. And so, we're really happy with it. It just came out at the beginning of 2018, but it's really out now because it came out at TMA. When something comes out at TMA, now it's out.
Now it's, yeah.
And so I think everybody knows about it at this point. But we wish it does well.
Great, great. Yeah, so that's Hal Leonard. And I guess the last thing I was just going to say, congratulations at 2018 Midwest. You performed there.
Yes.
Tell us about that experience.
Oh, it was awesome. It was a really it was an amazing experience. We got to play. The kids, we had some really, really good special kids with us this year, and as one of my good friends told me, it was an epic concert. It really was. It was, and I usually don't say that much. Anybody that knows me knows I really don't talk about my students a lot. It's not really, I don't like doing that. I like them playing. It talks for everything. But this one time, it was really special. It was a very special hour, and yeah, I'll never forget. Nobody in that room will ever forget it, ever. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for
Been
being
a
on the
pleasure.
program.
Yeah.
I've learned so much, and maybe we can get you back on again soon.
You got it.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Beyond the Clef. For more great content, subscribe on our website at beyondtheclef.com. And be sure to follow us on YouTube, iTunes, SoundCloud, and Facebook.